Welcome to episode of Sitting Courtside. Today, I kind of messed up. I called it too early. Last episode, we called it the upset episode. We got a lot more upsets to talk about. So without further ado, let's just hop into it. Welcome to an episode of Sitting Courtside. Today is Friday, January 12th. And if you thought that the top 10 was set in college basketball, you are wrong, my friend. You are wrong. Just like you're probably wrong if you think my hair is great, because right now I don't know what kind of peacock looking thing we got going on over here. We're going to call this the bad hair episode for me, but Kyle's me just bringing facts and great analysis. Look at this. I'm going to zoom in for the camera just for this hair.
That is some hair.
What is going on with my? It's wet.
Did you wear a
I don't know what's
hat?
happening. I know. I don't know about it. I'm just going to live with it.
Yeah.
People have bad hair days. But let's get into basketball. Let's talk college basketball.
All right. So we have a huge recap here, along with obviously a gigantic weekend slate. So we're going to rapid fire everything.
Yes.
We're going to give it to you in 40 minutes. Everything we could possibly do, recap games. Here we go. We're
Buddy, I never gave anything in 40 minutes.
never. I'll say. So first off, what the hell is going on in college basketball? I mean, we talked about at the preseason, or I think actually my recommendation before the conference season was be wary of betting road teams in conference games. It's not anything like neutral site games. Well, this last 2 days, it's only been 2 days since the last podcast. It's been bonkers. Over the last 2 days, we've had upsets galore. 4 out of the top 5 teams have lost. So let's get into it with Tuesday. Number 1, Purdue losing a 3-point shootout to Nebraska, 88-72. And just to go on a little bit of analysis here, Nebraska actually found a new way to guard Purdue that it used to be if you have good guards, you pressure their guards, and that's how you beat them. They actually found a way to not pressure the guards, but always double team Edey. Like they had whoever the backside defender was always guarding Edey, like help side, but it wasn't help side. He was just right behind him the whole time. So that's a new way of doing it. But you also have to hit 14 threes to win the game too. I don't know if that's a sustainable way to beat Purdue, but Nebraska gave a new blueprint on how to beat them.
I think also what helped them though is their 5. I forget his name, number 51. Yeah. The most. This guy looks like every generic guy over 6'4" at every rec league in America.
Yeah.
Just super foundational, did nothing flashy, but he could shoot the 3. I think that helped a little bit because he did draw 2 early fouls on Edey for just Edey having terrible feet, I guess. I don't really know what else to call it, which helped a lot. And then you had that Jeremy Lin looking one I got, whatever, Yagawa, whatever he is. That dude drains rainbows. Yeah. His shot looks disgusting, and it never touches the net. I mean, just chef's kiss on his shot. But that was huge for Nebraska. And as we're talking right before I left, Nebraska also is up big on Illinois, I think.
No, okay, I didn't see that one yet.
If I remember correctly. Go ahead.
Mass is the big guy that you were talking about that was guarding Edey and taking him off the dribble as well. And Taminga, anytime he is playing at home for Nebraska, that dude is balling out. He always has big home games. But yeah, as I mentioned, 3-point shootout. If you don't believe me, there was 27 threes made in this game. Absolutely crazy. Nebraska hit 61% of their threes.
Nice. Also, I call myself a liar really quickly. That was women's basketball. That's how obsessed I am.
Well, there you go.
Nebraska women's basketball is killing Illinois.
There you go. All right, so we go from number 1 to number 2. Houston gets just actually dominated in their first top 25 game. Not dominated by the score, but their offense terrible. 57-53 against Iowa State. As I mentioned, is their first top 25 net game that they played this year. First big test ends up in a loss. Terrible offense. A little bit concerning about Houston, especially going into the weekend.
Yeah, and the craziest fact of the week that I tweeted out: Iowa State has the most wins, the third most wins at home since 2011. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
It was Kansas.
It's Kansas, obvious. Indiana, I was like, okay, you could probably figure out French top 5 with them. But then Iowa State, like the top 3 was random as could be because Indiana and Iowa State haven't actually been like good for the last decade. Kansas, believable. But yeah, it was wild stat. So something to remember going forward is essentially if Iowa State is playing at home, it's a coin flip. Doesn't matter how bad or good they are. Just take maybe the money line. I don't even care. You might strike gold.
And that is a perfect transition into 1-2 loss, and now number 3 on Wednesday loss. Kansas gets beat by Central Florida 65-60. This was Central Florida's first win over a quad 1 or 2 team this year. This was their first win over a quad 1 team in 3 years. They were actually blown out by Kansas State last week by 25, and they were beat by Stetson. I don't know where this came from, but a huge win for Central Florida. Maybe they're relevant. I don't know.
Oh, didn't they also play FAU earlier in the year, and FAU like beat them by like 15 or 16 points?
Yeah,
so
dominated them.
maybe UCF and TCU are just going to be the same team, and that was like UCF's revenge.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, because TCU should definitely won us last week.
Yeah, think about that. Kansas should have 2 more losses, or should have 2 losses now in that conference.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to skip number 4 because UConn did get the win on Wednesday, but we go to number 5 where Tennessee, they tried to rally from down double digits at half, but they come up short 77-72 against Mississippi State at Mississippi State. Tennessee's defense let them down in the first half, plain and simple. Pressure got them back in the second half, but the big man on Mississippi State, Tolu Smith, that's how you say it, could not be stopped. 23 points on 70% shooting. He was even in foul trouble and still dominated the game. But yeah, Tennessee, a little bit concerning here just because their defense was absolutely terrible, allowing 39 points in the first half.
Yeah, also classic. I finally am like, okay, maybe Tennessee's good, and then they lose.
However,
I think it also justifies everything we've said about the SEC because Mississippi State was one of those teams early in the year that we both thought were maybe not a top 25 team, but they were a very good quality team that should probably make the tournament. So like you think about long term, yes, Tennessee lost to what should be a tournament team, but that only makes the SEC that much better if Mississippi State's going to be a quality team because it doesn't look like Arkansas is going to be one. Auburn, we'll see. I'm all in on the Pearl bus, the Pearl train. I don't know what we're going to call it. We'll figure it out. The Pearl boat.
We got 2 months to figure it out.
But yeah, I mean, that's not great for Tennessee that I decided to be on their side, and finally they just blew it.
Yeah,
I'm back out. Back
out. Okay. And I have just a little precursor for later. There is a team that's dead to me that I mentioned last podcast, but that's a few games away from now. So, all right, number 9, Oklahoma. They trailed all game to TCU, losing 80-71. And then honestly, this is just really disappointing. This is their second big game of the season for Oklahoma. They're now lost both the big games. They're only 3-2 against quad 1 and 2 teams. And like in this game, if you watched it from start to finish, you just really never thought Oklahoma was going to win this game.
Yeah, I think this just confirms they're not good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with Ole Miss, right? Ole Miss is going to need to show up. Otherwise, it's Ole Miss and Oklahoma are just going to be teams that took advantage of a bad schedule.
Yeah. So that's exactly what it is. Definitely. Okay. This is an interesting one because one team came into this game completely terrible, losing 4 in a row. The other team, we talked about it last podcast, that is just incredibly hard to predict. And a home stunner, Butler takes down number 11 Marquette on the road. So Butler beats Marquette on the road after Marquette lost last time. And at first blush going into this game, Butler was really nothing. They lost 4 in a row. They were 10-5. You don't think they're really anything. But all of their losses are against quad 1 teams, and none of them are at their stadium. So this is their only good win, but they really haven't had to play anybody at home, and they have plenty of chances to improve their resume because they're in the Big East. Maybe Butler's back a little bit.
So this is where sometimes doing no research would help. I literally looked at this game and I go, it was like a lightning strike. Like Butler's going to cover this because I was just looking at the cover.
Yeah.
And then I went back through doing some research, seeing they weren't doing too well. I was like, nope, don't fall for that. You're falling for old Butler, not current Butler. And then exactly that's what happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need trust your gut. Trust your gut. But yeah, huge for Butler. Huge for Butler.
And it just tells you, man, like just like we talked about last pod, it's going to be impossible to predict these Big East games. Just have some nice hair.
I'm just going to own it, I think, at this point.
Yeah. All right. Now to my team that is officially dead. They are officially dead to me. I will not be betting them the rest of the season. I'll always be betting against them or I'll be avoiding their games. Number 21, Clemson, their 3rd straight loss. Absolutely routed by Virginia Tech, 87-72. They couldn't stop anything. And just simply, my note was Dunzo. And that's all they are. Dunzo.
I mean, my only note is I told you so.
Yep, you did.
I told you so.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we got Clemson out of the way basically last episode with the amount of time they got on this show because they'll be getting approximately 0 after this.
0. Absolutely. I can't wait till Duke plays them. Just absolutely just wipes the floor with them because they are not good.
Oh no, here we go. I got this. This is a fun one. We like to do little side bets. We've not done any little side bets, I think, the
No, we
entire
haven't.
season. So for new listeners, we like to do little side bets. When Duke plays Clemson, you can pick
Okay.
the game, so you can pick whether it's there at Clemson or at home for Duke.
Okay.
If Clemson beats Duke,
Okay.
you have to go the rest of the season
Don't
not
like.
mentioning Duke on this show.
Oh my God. Okay. So they only play Duke once. It's at Duke on the 27th of January. They don't have a home game against Duke. So
Oh, that's good for you then.
you guys would say they
No,
don't
I mean
agree to
that
it.
if they're going to be dead to you and
Yeah.
you think you're going to wipe the floor with them, Duke needs to wipe the floor with them at Cameron Indoor. It makes it even better. That makes it worth it
Yeah.
if they do lose that you can't say their name
Yeah.
anymore.
And I was gonna give a caveat, but no, I won't even give a caveat. So I'll agree to it right now. I'll agree to it.
All right, perfect.
Deal is a deal. All right, other notable games from the weekend or from the last 2 days because it seemed like every single ranked team played. Baylor outlast BYU 81-72 is at Baylor, so they held home court. But they'll BYU 0-2 to start the Big 12 season, and we know it's not going to get any better. You still believing in BYU? A little bit
Still,
worried. What do you think?
still a believer. Still, I was gonna try to think of a funny way to say Mormon, but I'm not Mormon at all. Yes, still a believer though. Not holding it against them. I still think Baylor. They might be a sneaky team.
Yeah,
They might be a sneak. I don't. There's something about them I don't like, but we talked about it last episode, so I won't hold against BYU. And I'm gonna go as far as saying BYU will finish the year as a top 3 Big 12 team.
okay,
And I'm
that's a
not
big
just saying it because
prediction.
I also told you I put a future on them to make the Final Four.
Yeah,
Just saying.
yeah, just saying that has no impact on
Absolutely zero
them.
bias.
All right, this one hurts a little bit because I know we both like Colorado State. Boise State holds home court, takes down Colorado State. It's a little early in conference, but they're in a little bit of danger. They're now just 1-2, 2 games back of first in the Mountain West, but they do have 2 back-to-back winnable home games. But I bet Colorado State, all 3 of their first ones, only 1-2, so I'm a little disappointed by this start.
Yeah, so this was a little bit like I can deal with it. I don't know what a phrase I'm looking for here. If you recall the preseason episode, I said I was riding it back with Boise. I thought Boise was going to win the Mountain West because at that point we are like, we don't want to pick San Diego State. They seem like the clear winner. So for me, this looks great because
Yeah.
I do get Boise. That's who I have my preseason selection for. However, I was very high on Colorado State. It does not bode well that they basically just did what BYU did. I'm starting to look like a dunce. Like I don't know what I'm talking about. The 2 schools outside of traditional powers that I decide to back on a really bad week. 2024 has not been good for us.
No,
We're going to have a bounce back, though. However, I do think this will officially bounce Colorado State out of my top 10. They're going to have to prove it now going forward.
And the issue isn't Isaiah Stevens, like their best player. He's been doing fine. He's been putting up numbers, not shooting the ball badly at all. It's just the supporting cast has not been there in conference play.
Yeah, I would be really interested to see what the dip has been from like December 31st to now as far as efficiency.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
I don't know if we can filter it on KenPom if they will actually show you efficiency for the week. It's just overall. I'm
Yeah,
willing to
it's
bet
just
that their
overall.
efficiency has dropped by like 100+ spots in the
Well, and
last
I know
week.
they used to be a top 15 team. They're now down to 28th in overall efficiency. So,
Yeah. So
yeah. All right. So Texas beats, we mentioned this at the end of last podcast. If you didn't make it to the end, we'll just remind you Texas did end up beating Cincinnati. I gave a false ending to that game last time, but Amos did hit that game winner. Texas survived, pretty lucky to survive this one. It actually tells me more about Texas more than it does Cincinnati. I don't believe in Cincinnati anyways. It just reminds me that, as we mentioned, Texas is fraudy, and this is just another proof of it.
maybe the Big 12 is fraudy.
Oh, but you're just talking good about Baylor.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as a whole, maybe there's only a couple of good teams in the
Yeah.
Big 12,
Instead
not
of
a
the
lot of
entire,
good teams in the
yeah.
Big 12, right? Where I think really right now we're looking at maybe the Big 12 and the Big 10 are the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just thought.
Well, and then with like the Big East beating up on each other too, it's like we're gonna get into the tournament and there's gonna be half the field has double-digit losses, you know. So,
What would they do in that? I wonder because the Big 10 traditionally has been seen as the best conference in basketball, but I would say this will be the 3rd year now it's not been. I think we can
no,
all agree on that. what would they do then if you have like a 5-loss SEC team and like a 9-loss Big Ten school, right? Like,
You know, I mean, I
I'd be
think the
curious to see
SEC is
how they
better
go
than the
about
Big
that,
Ten.
right?
So,
Like, what do we
you
have
know,
Mississippi State, right? Let's say at 7 losses. And then you
mhm.
have like Purdue at 7 losses or 6 losses. Like, how are you going to judge
Yeah,
that? Or if you have a Kentucky at 5 losses, it's
yeah.
going to be interesting going down the stretch with all these losses coming early for a lot of these teams.
But to say, but just with looking at how this week and last weekend went, there's going to be teams with a lot of losses because nobody's holding like anything on the road right now.
No one's holding serve.
You know. All right, this one also, I'll just continue to bring them up because it hurts every time. But UNC continues to dominate the ACC, 67-54 over North Carolina State on the road. They're 4-0 in the ACC. They've won 6 in a row. North Carolina just they get it done. They didn't even shoot the ball well here, and they still won this game.
So if you looked at that line I think was only 2.5 to close
Mm-hmm.
in favor of NC State, if I remember correctly.
Yep, you're correct.
I think that was maybe more respect for NC State's game than it was disrespect for North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said last episode, North Carolina might just be the Cleveland Browns. Like they just keep finding a way to win. And instead of fighting it, we just need to accept it and make money off of it. Just
I was about to say that's all I'm doing is making money off them, even though I'm not liking it. Yeah.
In the words of Stu Feiner, if a bet does not make you uncomfortable, it's not the right bet.
Like, just listen to these stats. They shot 38% from the field, 33% from three, 60% from free throw line, 27 fouls or turnovers, 10 assists, and they won the game by 13 points on the road.
Yeah, that sounded like someone that lost by 12.
Yeah, like easily lost. Yeah.
60% from the free throw line.
Yeah.
And only what'd you say? 38% from the field?
From the field.
Yeah, that's a double-digit loss.
And nearly triple amount of fouls and turnovers as assists. And they won easily.
That's just gross.
Yeah. So this next one got me pretty nervous there for a while because I know we're both on them. You were on them from the preseason, but Memphis survives the scare against UTSA, 107-101 in overtime. Absolutely no defense played in this game. It was just a constant sprint up and down the court. But even though it was a letdown game, they didn't get the loss, which is a big thing that some of these teams have not been able to avoid. Speaking of like Florida Atlantic,
Yes.
So it's a good way to avoid a really bad loss for Memphis.
Yes, that's what we're taking away from this. They are kids. They just come off an emotional win. Big win for them. Didn't falter. They tripped. They did not fall.
Yep. All right. This one, I really think if you're not on board with them yet, I think they have proven that everyone should be on board. At least that's how I'm calling my shot here. Wisconsin, they sit alone at the top of the Big Ten after a road win against Ohio State. This team now has 4 quad 1 wins. They don't have any bad losses. I know that at the beginning of the year, I was like, they have no depth. That does not matter because their starting 5 plays 30-plus minutes every game. They have so much experience. I think Wisconsin is going to be very dangerous in the Big Ten.
You should have learned it from season 1 if you've been watching or listened for a while. When in doubt, just back Wisconsin. Just back Wisconsin. They will find a way to make it right for you. Just don't put on them winning the national title.
Yeah, no,
really
definitely don't do that.
It's really simple. They are the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, that is a perfect way of putting it, actually. All right, the last game I have on air, and if you have any others, just let us know. But this one absolutely blows my mind. Miami loses at home to Louisville. At home to Louisville, 80-71. And you're like, okay, whatever. Louisville beats Miami. That must be okay, right? No. Louisville is a quad 4 team. That means they're outside the top 250 in the net rankings. So it's an absolutely terrible loss. You cannot bet or trust Miami right now. They have 3 losses to quad 1 teams. 2 of those were absolute blowouts by over 23 points. And then out this quad 4 loss. I'm just going to start avoiding the betting Miami games because they've had a couple good wins in the last 2 weeks. And now with this loss on top of those blowout losses, I just can't trust them at all.
This, honestly, them losing to Louisville is essentially what we've had with the rest of the big teams, where Miami, huge win, followed by a game that they should absolutely win, and they stumble. Louisville, on the other hand, I didn't think they're going to win 5 games this year.
Yeah.
They're going to somehow stumble their way to like 12 wins. And I say stumble because there's been a couple wins already this season. I'm like, how did you win that game? They don't even look good when they play. They gave everything they had for an entire half against Kentucky, and
Mhm.
Kentucky didn't even break a sweat.
Yeah.
Like, Louisville
Yeah.
is not a good basketball team.
Not at all.
I could find 5 guys right now within probably a 50-mile radius that could beat Louisville.
Yeah, probably. And like they were 17 and a half point underdogs, and that was before Nigel Pack was ruled in the game. I'd even looked it up once Nigel Pack was ruled to play in the game. So absolutely crazy.
Despicable.
All right, so I think that's the fastest recap we've ever done, but I think we covered most of it. Do you have anything else?
I got nothing else, man. You got it all.
I mean, that was 2 days worth of basketball. That's
Yeah.
how crazy it's been.
Yeah,
All
we've
right.
covered, I feel like that was normally 2 weeks of a recap.
Uh-huh. That was like after like New Year's, trying to
Yeah.
recap Christmas and New Year's. All right. Do you have your updated record, and did you survive the last 2 days?
Buddy,
Basically?
did I survive?
Okay.
Over the last 2 days, I have went 25 and 19.
Okay.
All right.
Nice. Yeah.
So 57%. I'm doing just fine. However, for my updated record, 254, 225, and 2, 481 bets, 53%.
Nice.
So
Okay.
I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. It's gonna take a lot for me to move a whole percent up or down at this point.
So many bets.
I'm gonna have to do really bad or really good in a week's
Yeah.
time.
Well, that's what Saturdays are for, because they can make like 25 bets on those days.
Yeah.
All right. So the last 2 days, I went 13 and 14, and I got lucky to go 13 and 14. Honestly, I got a couple of those player props that I bet that hit by half a point. That brings me to 166 and 127 and 0, 56.66%. So almost a percentage point down from last podcast. But honestly, I was really sweating it out last night when I started out 0 for 3. So I'll take it. And just since we've been doing this for the last couple of pods, as we're talking, FAU is only up by 3 points with 2 minutes left against Tulane.
They need to quit wearing those jerseys.
Yeah, maybe that's
like my big running thing in this show has always been like, if you're wearing a black jersey, it's an automatic win, but like it's only an automatic win if it's a big game.
Yeah.
Right? Like they wore the black jerseys against Arizona. That's an automatic win. But they keep wearing them. Stop.
Mhm.
You're ruining the black jersey.
Yeah, it's got to be like a unique, like only big game, only like a night game or something like that.
Yeah, and they're doing the Miami Vice too, like the Miami Vice colors, which aren't their colors at all. So like, yes, bring out those jerseys when you play a massive game, not when you're playing Charlotte or who'd you say they're playing right now?
Tulane.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I had no idea Ron Hunter was the coach of Tulane, like the old IUPUI coach.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. So now we're going on to our picks. Orleans, because we won't have any spreads right now because there really isn't anything to bet on Friday, and I do not believe no spreads are out yet for Saturday. So I'll mention a couple of the Ken Palm stats for what they think the game is going to be, but just give some leans on what you think. And we're going to have to go a little bit even more rapid fire because we have a lot. And I'm just going to let you guys know we're going to go through like I think it's 10 or 11 picks. There's so many more games to bet. So make sure you look at the schedule. Check out our Twitter for the whole full slate. So let's go ahead and start on Saturday noon. Number 5, Tennessee, who is 11-4 at Georgia, who is 12-3. Huge discrepancy in Ken Palm and net rankings here, as Georgia is way behind in both. But they're 10-0 at home, but only 0-1 in the quad one games. Do you think Tennessee bounced back, or are you going to take Georgia to get a huge win in the SEC?
It's automatic bounce back. Georgia, I'm sorry, you're getting stomped. Like they'll get beat by 20.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Ken Palm only has this as like a 7-point difference right now in this game, but I think Rick Barnes realized that his team needs to press like against SEC just to like dominate, because that's what they did and got back in the game to State. So I'm going to go with Tennessee here as well.
Also, maybe take their team total over if you can.
Okay.
I don't know what it'll be at, but I'd say anything around the 70s will be fine. As long as it doesn't touch 80, you're good.
Okay, yes, because Ken Palm has them going 76-68. So yeah, I like both of those, the over and this spread. All right, noon. I really want to put this game on here on Saturday, noon Eastern, because it's kind of a prove it game. Are you for real? Or are you not? Seton Hall 11-5 at Butler 11-5. Seton Hall has 3 quad one wins, but Butler again, they stopped their 4-game losing streak to beat Marquette. It's always hard to win at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Seton Hall, they've proven they can get the big wins. I'm going to call the upset on the road. I'll take Seton Hall.
This is an interesting game. What do you think the spread is going to be?
what do I think, or what do I think Ken Palm thinks? Because I have
Sure.
two. I think the spread will only be like 3. I think it'll be Butler -3. Ken Palm has Butler to win by 5.
Got it. I
So
was thinking it's going to be something closer to Butler 1.5.
mhm.
So I'm going to take Seton Hall to cover. Depending on the spread, I might change my mind.
If it's less than 3, I'll just take Seton Hall to win, like money line. But if it's like 4 or 5, I'll take the points with Seton Hall. So, all right, let's move to another Big East game. 1 p.m. St. John's 12-4 at number 22 Creighton, who's also 12-4. What do you like in this one?
I'm going to say this is going to be close to a double-digit spread, and I will take St. John's to cover it. If it gets anything under, let's say 7.5, I'll take Creighton.
Wow. Okay. So we spend way too much time together.
I knew it when you smirked. I was like, he thinks the same thing.
Yeah. I said, so right now, Ken Palm has Creighton to win by 8. I said, if it's 7.5 or more, I'll take St. John's. If it's 7.5 or less, I won't bet this game. So I'm going to likely bet St. John's because I do think it'll be 8 or more. So I will take St. John's. And just to let you know, they've won 4 in a row, 6 of 7 and 10 of 12. In those 12 games, 3 quad 1 wins. St. John's is rolling right now.
Honestly, if you don't know who, like us personally, you would think that me and you watch every game together, like in the same room. We literally lived 300 miles apart.
Yeah. And we watch like 2 games together at max.
Yes.
That is hilarious. So, man, I guess I just kept putting on either the SEC or the Big East because now we have an SEC 2 p.m. battle. Number 6 Kentucky, 12-2 at Texas A&M, who is 9-6. And if you go back to the preseason, huge expectations for A&M and by the voters and by me. I was all over A&M. They started the season 5-0. They beat Ohio State, Penn State, and SMU to start the season. But now I'm teaming this game as a savior season game. If they lose this one, they go to 9-7. And that's before mid-January, where they still have 15 more games in conference play and in a very competitive conference. This could be a lost season if they lose this game, but it also could be a bounce back game for Texas A&M. Right now, it looks like the spread's basically going to be a pick 'em. And just out of I really want Texas A&M to be relevant this year, I'll take them. But as you're listening to this, guys, this is not a head pick. This is a heart pick because I want Texas A&M to be relevant the rest of the year.
Yeah, so I'm just going to call it now. Kentucky wins this game. A&M season kind of goes down the drain. However, they will make a very intriguing dark horse race in the tournament because they are talented.
Yeah. And I know everyone's like, well, Kyle, you've been all over Kentucky all year. Well, sometimes you have to get off that team to root for your other team that you're rooting for too. So
yes.
All right, I'll be interested to see how you pick this one here. 2 p.m. on Saturday, number 19 San Diego State 14-2 at New Mexico 13-3. Let's hear it.
This is tough. I think for the sake of the Mountain West, if you're a Mountain West fan, I think you probably are going to want San Diego State to win this game because you need the conference to be relevant and get a high seed, which they're not going to get unless someone runs the table. If you're a basketball fan and you just want to see the conference as a whole do really great, you're going New Mexico. You have to go New Mexico. And yeah, let's go Lobos. We're going Lobos. However, I just want to remind you before you make your pick, Kyle, a certain someone used to be a coach there that you are not a fan of.
Alford? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say any names. That's you're saying that, not me. I'm going Lobos though.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I can convince you of this to switch your pick here. Let me just give some stats. Leave out the COVID year. Just ignore the COVID year because New Mexico was absolutely terrible the COVID year with Alford. Wait, what did I say? I didn't mean to say that now. New Mexico, they started this year 13-1. Last year they started 14-0. The year before that they started 4-1, and the year before COVID they started 13-2. They've never made the tournament in any of those years. This is what they do. They play easy non-conference schedules and fall apart in the conference. San Diego State to the moon. I'm taking them.
Okay. All right, you convinced me. I want San Diego State.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, when I looked into that, I was like, didn't they start out really good last year too? And then I went down the rabbit hole looking them up. And it's just
I did watch them a little bit the other day. They played UNLV. They do press. They do have quite a bit of size, but they are extremely unathletic. Like they are not athletic whatsoever. Also, side note, them and UNLV need to quit wearing red at the same time.
Yeah,
that game was hard to follow.
Yeah. And just like no, whoever you're betting in this game, it's going to be a pick 'em. Ken Palm literally has it 76, 75, so it's definitely going to be a pick 'em in this
That
one.
should be interesting then.
All right, 4 p.m. on Saturday. Number 18 BYU, 12-3 at UCF. I never thought I'd be putting UCF on one of these at 10-4. I'm going BYU. They absolutely need this. They cannot go 0-3. I can't buy into UCF, so I'll go BYU here.
Yeah, well, they just had the big upset win. Their kids are emotional. BYU it by double digits.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We'll keep it moving in the Big 12. 4 p.m. Kansas State 12-3 at Texas Tech, who is 13-2. Ken Palm has this as a Texas Tech win by 7 points. Do you think they can get that done, or are you going to take Kansas State on the road to cover? What do you think?
All right, that's what I'm gonna do. I've somewhat started to like Kansas State, especially after or was it 2 years ago their run, or was it last year? It was last year's run. Last year's run.
Yep.
I'm gonna say this: whoever wins this game, I will start backing them more than the other team in the Big 12. I'm already a big guns up guy, but they're not necessarily supposed to have a big year, so I'm hesitant with them. I don't want to get behind my skis here and start backing them too much. Whoever wins this game, they will have my support to go and take the Big 12, not named BYU.
Okay, not named BYU. So I actually don't want to pick a side on this one. I think if it's going to be 6 or 7 points, it's going to be way too much.
Get out of my head. I just said that.
But I'm actually, which is very rare for a Texas Tech team, I'm going to take the over in this game. You know why? This isn't your normal Texas Tech team. They're actually more efficient on offense than they are defense. And their tempo is actually not in the bottom 35. It's like bottom 100. So I actually think this game is going to hit the over. I expect the over-under to be like the 130, 132. And I think it hits the over.
All right. I love it.
All right, 6 p.m. on Saturday night. Number 2, Houston, 14-1 at TCU, who is 12-3. Ken Palm putting this one at a 7-point favorite against a team that should have beat Kansas on the road and just be okay easily at home. If it's a 7-point spread, I am hammering TCU because Houston doesn't score a lot of points anyway. I'll probably take it all the way to +5 for the home team. I love TCU in this one.
Yep. Is it Jamie Dixon? He's the coach at TCU, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, Jamie Dixon. He loves running up and down the court. Houston plays amazing defense. They're going to make this total extremely low. I'm taking the over. You'll have that over by the 12-minute mark in the second half.
Okay, I love it. I love it. I'll back that one up too. I like that over. All right, so let's move it to the last game that we have on Saturday night. Cincinnati, who's 12-3 at number 14 Baylor, who's 13-2. I just basically wanted to gauge your level of how much trust you have in Cincinnati here. Let me see their spread real quick. Looks like it's going to be, well, Ken Palm has a 8. This is a gauntlet to welcome Cincinnati, their third straight top 15 game. Say I gave you 8 points here with Cincinnati. You taking them or going Baylor?
I'll take Baylor if it's 8. I'll take Cincinnati if it's more than 10.
Okay. Yeah, I actually agree with that. I'm going to probably just bet Baylor if it's 10.5 or less. So,
and I'll take the over. And I'll take Baylor's team total over.
Okay.
No, I take that back. I'll take Cincinnati's team total over. Baylor's will be super high. They're going to make Cincinnati's too low. And if I think Cincinnati's going to cover, that means they have to cover their total probably too.
Okay, I like that.
There we go.
I like that. All right, we're skipping Sunday because Sunday is for football, for NFL playoff weekend, and there's absolutely just nothing to really bet on Sunday. But Monday, MLK Day, we have one game that I think is pretty relevant. 2:30 p.m. Yes, that's during the day. Villanova 10-5 at number 11 Marquette, who's 11-5. Again, these are two impossible teams to project every single week. You don't really know how to bet their games, and it's a midday MLK game, so even harder to project. They're still both somehow in the top 26 in Ken Palm, but Nova's likely still without Justin Moore. So I have to go Marquette here. If it's more than like 6.5, I'll get a little weary, but Marquette's going to win this game.
Is it at Marquette or is it neutral site?
It's at Marquette.
It's at Marquette? Yeah. All right, cool. I'm taking the under. And what's that white kid? What's his name? Kellick? Something? Kolick, that's it. Yeah. I'm going to take his over in points.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Just curious, what do you think is over under will probably be
14.5.
Yep, that's probably exactly what it'll be because the average is 14.
So. There we go.
All right, so since you'll be in Florida, we're not recording next Monday. We'll be recording just one podcast next week. Either what days are you available?
Wednesday, Thursday, it'll probably come out on Thursday.
Okay. So we're only recording one for next week, but we have to give you a pick for this one on Tuesday because you just have to. It's 7 p.m. Eastern. Number 1 Purdue at IU. The big rivalry for the area that we live in. Do you give the Hoosiers any shot here?
So for clarity, Purdue will be number 3. They won't be number 1 anymore. That's a fact.
Yep.
And I'm calling number 3 because they won't make them drop that much because everyone else lost too. So they might still be number 1. Jeez. I mean,
I was going to say, I think they actually might still be 1. But
geez, I didn't think about that. At Indiana.
Yep, at IU.
And Indiana swept last year.
Yep, they sure did.
So I'll take Purdue. Indiana is not getting 3 straight on a number 1 Purdue. That's just not happening. Purdue probably sweeps this year.
Yeah.
And because Indiana stinks. You watch 30 seconds of them play. They are bad.
Yeah, we talked about it last podcast. This team is just not good. And they somehow moved up in Ken Palm despite getting beat by Rutgers this week and not playing good at all. I can't see them doing anything because they can't shoot threes, and that's what you have to do to beat Purdue. And they have one big man where he's good, but guess what? He's gonna have to guard Edey the entire game. I don't see how they compete in this game.
Don't even from a guard play perspective, like Indiana has more athletic guards, but Purdue is way more I won't say talented. They have way more depth. That's the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Way more depth at the guard play. Xavier Johnson, why he still gets to play, I don't know. Yeah, that dude should have graduated 2 years ago and went off into the sunset, but I'll take Purdue.
So what do you think, just if you had to guess, what do you think Ken Palm predicts this game at?
Purdue, I mean, if it were me, I guess I'm saying it's going to be like 81-73, but I'm guessing Ken Palm being what it is, it's going to be like 77-71.
You should have went with your first guess.
Okay, well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, 81 Purdue. You got their number right, and it was 70 for IU.
Okay, whenever you gave that look too after I said it, you're like, geez, he was close.
Yeah. I will say, though, if it's going to be Purdue minus 10 or 11 on the road, I'm not taking that. I'll just enjoy the game and bet some player props because I'm not going to lay 11 on the road.
I honestly was thinking 10, but I was like, 10's way too much for a rivalry game.
Yep. And so we didn't actually touch on all the Tuesday games. I just wanted to make sure that we got this bet in. And there are epic games. Like we have Baylor, Kansas State, TCU, Cincinnati, Iowa State, BYU. Just go ahead and check out our Twitter. We'll post all of our picks. But I knew we had to get it on the podcast for this big rivalry because this is where we live. Where we are.
And stick to the Twitter, boys and gals. And if you're in the middle, unicorns, cats, foxes, I don't care. There's going to be a ton of games we're going to be able to talk about, but we will always have picks. Always have picks.
Definitely. So go follow us on Twitter at MingoMade1, at Kyle Cliffy. Very best of luck on just an epic weekend in bets. It's going to be crazy. Good luck in NFL as well. It's a hell of a playoff weekend. And we'll talk to you later next week.
Love you guys.